The adaptation has been in film since the dawn of film itself. Some are good, and some are bad. But because they are an adaptation of a property, albeit books, games, or comics, the fans start picking sides and basing their opinions off of trivial things. That is why today I am going to take off the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia and look at adaptations from an unbiased perspective when bias is the overwhelming majority. Garfield the movie is one of the most predictable movies I've ever seen. Its writing of characters, even for a kid's movie, is bad. The CG is just jarring and off-putting. So the movie starts off with a montage of photos that's supposed to be a backstory for Garfield's origins that could be just explained in like one image. Instead, it's just a montage just to fill the running time, but they need to find somewhere to put that Baha-Man song. So Garfield and John go through their daily routine, after which Garfield goes outside, where we see his neighbor Nermal, and the first thing I think is, why is Garfield cartoonish, but the other animals aren't? It just looks weird when you go side by side, like you see minutes into the movie, stick out as not belonging together. I really should have went with one way or the other, but not both. It really breaks my immersion into this movie, man. Come on. It broke my immersion into the Garfield movie. So we meet some of Garfield's neighbors, which really brings to the forefront the humor of this movie, which boils down to 4 types of jokes. 1. Sarcasm.
It's liver flavored.
Delicious.
Type 2. Fourth wall breaks. Type 3. Garfield referencing random shit.
Got milk?
Type 4. Garfield dancing. And that's about it. So after that, we see some more of Garfield's daily routine. While he's watching TV, we get introduced to the antagonist of the movie. You must be thinking, Jake, how do you know that he's the main antagonist already? Well, he doesn't like cats.
Damned cat allergies.
But no, there's more to his character than that. I think he also wants to be famous, but he's stuck in a dead-end daytime television show, and he wants to be on a dead-end statewide TV show, where all he does is hold a cat. He's allergic to cats. Why doesn't he just say to his, bosses or his agent or something, hey, can I not work with cats? I have allergies. Could I work with, a dog instead? So the movie cuts back to Garfield, and he's going to the vet again, because John is obsessive about the veterinarian there, Liz, but she doesn't find that creepy, even though it kinda is. Or the fact that he brings in so often. She decides that she wants to give John a dog, just 'cause. John takes it, and at this point it became really noticeable how awkward it looked whenever Garfield was being held by a human. This wouldn't be a problem if they used an actual cat for some of the scenes. Like what they do with some of the long shots of the other animals, and then just replace the mouth movement. So they bring Odie home, and everyone seems to like Odie, except for Garfield. After Odie continuously gets more attention than Garfield, Garfield decides to sneak onto Liz's truck when John takes Odie to a dog show. So that when they get to the dog show, Happy, the main antagonist of the movie, is there, even though he's a well-known representative for a cat food company. But why is he at a dog show? When Garfield sneaks out, he immediately gets noticed by all the dogs competing in the competition. And it looks like the dogs are just trained to chase a treat. When Garfield's cornered, it looks like they're looking up at a treat and not looking at Garfield. While that happens, Odie entertains the crowd by just jumping to music. Yeah, it's not even that impressive, it's just jumping. But everyone just seems wowed by it. It also impressed Happy, who takes a photo with John, and that photo makes it onto the headline of Dog Show News. The newspaper that totally isn't just some stock transition. Totally not. So they get back to John's house, and Garfield manages to knock over a giant mousetrap contraption. Then John decides to throw out Garfield just for the mess he made. Which is kind of fucked up, you're just gonna let your pet run away. What the fuck? While Garfield is outside, he starts singing a song. Okay, Bill Murray, you can make a passable Garfield, but please don't fucking sing.
I'm in a new dog state of mind.
So Odie lets in Garfield, but Garfield decides to lock him out. And guess what happens? Odie runs away. Who could have known that letting your pets outside means they probably run away? So Happy talks about how he was wowed that Odie was jumping up and down, only to find out that Odie was found by someone on the street. And after that, we see John try to tell Liz that he lost Odie, and at this point, it becomes abundantly clear that these two have little chemistry with each other. They really just say their lines with the minimum amount of effort. Garfield goes outside to see his friends, and they say,
"You cast Odie out into the cold, cruel world?"
Like, what the fuck? Okay, this is a bit of a double standard. Garfield gets left outside. They don't give a shit. But Odie gets left outside. They feel bad about it. And they didn't do anything about it either. They were just like sitting outside. They could have done something about it. But no, they didn't. They were outside too for some reason. And they just watched it happen. Okay, so Happy decides he's desperate enough to steal someone's dog to have a chance to be on a statewide television show. We cut back to Garfield watching TV and seeing Odie with Happy, and tries to tell John, but John is such a fucking dumbass that he doesn't see his cat pointing at the TV, and he does nothing about it. So Garfield decides he's gonna set on a journey and find Odie. So Garfield's like, where do I start? And he knows exactly where to look. The back of a cat food box. Genius move. You know, the giant pink building. Genius move. Damn, I didn't know how bad they had it back then, man. Back in 2004, it didn't have GPS. Fuck. So Garfield leaves, and we get this shot of Garfield walking, and he, like, looks at this bus, but they were too lazy to show how he got on the bus, so they just cut to a shot of the bus entering a city. When we see the city, it becomes apparent that the city set that they used is a set, and it looks really cheap. As Garfield is going down some alley for no particular reason, he gets cornered by a swarm of mice, but when he's talking to the mice, it's obvious that they had actual mice in one shot versus when the mice is talking or like standing up, it's CG. It just becomes abundantly clear. So the mouse that we saw at the beginning of the film helps Garfield get to the tower where they filmed the show. Garf enters the building through the vents, and they use this as a time to show, Garfield makes a funny face. And after that's done, we find Odie, only to discover that Happy has been using a shot collar to do the jumping, even though they could just do that by playing the song. And it's also weird when in the door, the seal of the United States of America on his door for no reason. That's besides the point. Happy takes Odie to the train station for a train to New York. As they're heading down an elevator, Garfield thinks he can catch up by sliding down on a tray. It would be quicker if he just, like, you know, jumped. I think they thought it looked cool when Garfield was using a tray to get down the stairs, but it doesn't. But it doesn't matter because he just gets stopped a couple floors down by a vacuum, and he falls out a window and breaks metal, yet somehow isn't hurt at all because he landed in lasagna. Get it? Because he likes lasagna? Then Garfield just gets caught by an animal, where Garfield meets Happy's old cat, who the writers decide to exaggerate his character to seem more interesting than he actually is in the runtime.
Would you please just stop calling me that? My name isn't really persnickety. It's Sir Roland.
Sir Roland?
Yes, another one of Happy Chapman's acts of cruelty. I was trained in the classical theatre, you know.
In the same scene, we see Garfield has come to like Odie, even though there's no indication that he had, actually, besides the fact that he went out to look for him through the peer pressure. And a family comes by and chooses Happy's old cat to adopt, and then Happy's old cat hits the release button. But it begs the question, why do you have a button that releases all the animals right next to the area where you show off all the animals? It's also really baffling that animal control people can't stop animals from leaving the building. Hell, the guy who tries to stop them just ends up holding the door for them. And also, for some reason, the animal control building is really close to the train station because Garfield manages to get there really fast. But by the time Garfield gets there, he missed the train that Odie was on. What he decides is to cause gridlock for the trains going through. He stops the trains and gets on the one that Odie's on, and he free Odie. When Happy's assistant sees Odie free, he tells Happy, and Happy tries to get out of the car, and the footage of him getting out of the car is sped up for some reason. And somehow Garfield and Odie end up at the luggage processing building, and Happy somehow finds them through the giant sea of people. Happy somehow corners them by pushing over some luggage. The luggage that Happy pushed over shouldn't be enough to stop them. They're capable of jumping really high. The reason that Happy wants Odie is he can jump, and Garfield literally jumps onto Happy right after they've been cornered, taller than any of the cases of luggage. It's just supposed to be dramatic, but it really kind of fails because we've seen them do incredible feats. So Garfield gets pushed away by Happy, and Happy runs away, but gets trapped by the animals that were freed from the pound, and then they maul him. And after being mauled, they somehow figured out how to put on the collar that he used to shock Odie earlier, and they just shock him. But it's different this time from when Odie got shocked earlier in the film, because they have this really cheap and stock visual effect for when he gets shocked. But John finds them and punches Happy, after which Happy gets arrested. His brother just does not want to be associated with him, which is, I'm gonna have to admit, it's pretty funny.
Police are bringing the suspect out as we speak.
And good grief, it's my idiot brother.
Hey, that's Happy Chapman!
And everything goes back to normal, and they live happily ever after. This movie was a generic, by-the-numbers, soulless 2000s kid movie. The writing was bland, the acting was nearly non-existent, and really didn't have a presence in the movie at all. The animation struggled between realistic and cartoony, and really failed to make the difference not noticeable and not as jarring. And that's why I'm glad they never made a fucking sequel to this movie. Holy shit. Wait. What the fuck?